Hey guys, welcome back. Another video. Hopefully I'm a little more presentable than the last one. This time I want to talk about writing villains, and specifically what type of villain you want to pick for your story. Now, there are, of course, an infinite panoply of villains out there. You can go with any type, but I'm going to talk about the general styles that fit according to what audience you're writing for. And this is important. You need to know what type of audience you're writing for to properly decide on a villain. If you're writing for an older audience that's more mature, your villains can actually be less villainy. They can be characters that are simply antagonists, that are not necessarily bad guys, but they are still there to stop the heroes for whatever their reasons are. These are the sorts of characters that if you were writing a story from their perspective, they'd clearly be the protagonist. But you're not. You're writing the story from the perspective of the protagonists. There, you can go with a lot of depth in these villains, and some of the greatest villains in the history of cinema and literature are these sorts of characters where you realize that they're doing what they do because they think it's the right thing to do. That's kind of what makes them a powerful type of character to write. On the other end of the spectrum, another type of villain is usually reserved primarily for younger audiences. This is often mistaken for a black and white or two-dimensional villain. But a well-written villain is never black and white and is never two-dimensional. However, these villains, these are the Dark Lords. You know, your Voldemort, your Sauron. The sorts of Bond, cat-petting, world domination type characters. Now, these characters, like I said, they're not two-dimensional. They're not necessarily black and white, but they are, let's call them high contrast. You know, we've taken the contrast and we've turned it all the way up. And if you do that in your graphics program, you'll see that it turns an image into something with very few colors, relatively speaking. And the advantage of this is that it gives a very easy definition to the character. He's a bad guy. He's doing bad things. The hero has to save the world or save whatever from him. However, if you want these characters to be memorable, they still have to be more than black and white, more than two-dimensional. You have to remember that even those characters, they are the heroes of their own story. If you're telling the story from their perspective, even if they are a cackling, maniacal madman, they think they're the good guy. Okay? The Joker in Batman thinks he's the good guy for various reasons. And those reasons vary from story to story, but ultimately he has a goal that he thinks is the right thing to do. And he feels fully justified in what he does. Voldemort, if you dig into the background, you realize that he has a lot of reasons for what he does, and he believes that he's justified in what he does. You may consider his actions unjustifiable, and I would agree, but you're not him. And it's always important to remember that the villain is the hero of his own story. And you need to write them like that. Even if you're writing a high contrast villain for a younger audience, you need to include that depth. Otherwise they become forgettable. And a forgettable villain means a forgettable protagonist. And a forgettable protagonist means a forgettable book. And none of us want that. Alright guys, that's it for today. I'm going to be back again tomorrow, of course. I'll see you then. Keep writing. I hope everybody's well. Cheers.